Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the new season of Face Off. We're about to talk about the week that was in sports, once again alongside Derek McCauley, Kyle Solinder. I am Ryan Ravel. Guys, how are we?
Doing good, man.
Doing good? How about you, Kyle?
Not bad at all.
Not bad. What do you say we jump right into it, starting with the NFL?
Let's do it.
And the drama ended pretty much as quickly as it began with Josh Freeman. The whole thing with the Buccaneers, the disagreements with the coaching staff, he's released, and he signed a few days ago with the Minnesota Vikings. Kyle, we will start with you. Should Josh Freeman be the starter for the Vikings this week?
Oh, absolutely. And he should be the starter moving forward in the season. Until he does something that proves he can't be the starter, they should absolutely be looking in his direction. I think when you look at Josh Freeman, he's only 25 years old. He's had a 4,000-yard passing season. And when you look at the Vikings, they don't really have any direction if you look away from Ponder. So I think you have to consider Josh Freeman not just now, but in a long-term role with that team.
And you know what, Kyle? I'm going to have to agree with you on that. I know the whole purpose is we're supposed to argue on this, have the banter back and forth, but this is one of the things that, I'm going to have to agree. I mean, I talked about this before we went on the air. They usually pay these athletes millions of dollars, six-figure contracts, money that, to me, if I'm getting paid that kind of money, I want to play.
Absolutely.
I don't want to sit on the sidelines. And this dude's what, 25?
25.
He's 25 years old. You give him a chance. I mean, Ponder, your starting quarterback, has been a flop so far. Matt Castle's the only other viable option, and he's won one game, the only one they've won, by way, this whole season. You're in the bottom of your division. Why not give him a shot?
The only thing stopping me from saying Josh Freeman in this scenario is I lost a lot of respect for him with what happened in Tampa. It's just like if he goes into Minnesota and dislikes that coaching staff, is he just going to not want to play again, going to start begging for trades or whatever? That's the only thing. It's just the off the field, the kind of guy he is. The only thing that worries me, the off the field dramatics, which is why I think you would consider starting Castle. I think we can all agree Ponder's the one guy that just it's not working out.
He's
It's not working
out.
out. No. I mean, the thing that lost it with me for him is last year, the playoff game against Green Bay just does not play. Joe Webb comes in, they get spanked out of Lambeau. So I think I'd consider Castle because the only thing stopping me with Freeman is the off-the-field issues that he experienced with Tampa Bay, and is that going to happen again in Minnesota?
That's an understandable complaint.
Well, that's why I start Freeman. You got to give a chance to see if that's going to be a continuing issue with him. And that's the problem with Castle. It's like I said about Nick Foles and the Eagles last week. You have to start looking forward. Freeman is a viable option moving forward, whereas Matt Castle isn't. Matt Castle's already into his 30s.
I mean, they're both one of those guys who they've shown they can win, but just haven't really won any really big games. Castle's never been a playoff guy. Freeman has, gotten around there, but never won anything special.
But the thing is, you could make, not to retract from my original statement, but I mean, you could make the argument for Matt Castle. You could. You said that he's in his 30s and everything like that. I'm all for giving Freeman the chance. He's a young guy. You can see what he's got. But Castle is the only one that's proven that he can win.
And you have to consider winning right now while Adrian Peterson's still in his prime. That has to be a
That's
factor.
absolutely one thing. And also, I mean, I don't expect the Packers and Bears to stay average as they've been so far. I expect the Packers to take off. But as of right now, the Vikings are still very well in the hunt.
They're in the hunt.
They're right there.
They have a shot.
Because the Packers had a little bit of a struggle this season. And the Bears, I think the Bears are overrated personally. I don't like Jay Cutler. So, who do you think can win right now? I think both of them have a legit chance. It's just the off-the-field issues for Freeman that slow me down from picking him.
I can agree with that.
All right, we're going to stay in the NFL now. We're going to go to this team right here once again. The now 0-5 New York Giants, losing to the Eagles this week. My Eagles, 36-21. Guys, as Eli Manning, would you say he's the problem with the Giants so far this season? Derek, we're going to start with you.
No. I'd say that he's a major factor, though. I think that there's a two-pronged reason why this team's a complete flop right now. Eli, nobody can see. It's unprecedented to see him fail this horribly. I mean, when you have two receivers like Hakeem Nicks and Victor Cruz as deep threats on everything that you could possibly do, to fail that badly, you just can't see that coming. But along with that, you have to give a little bit of that to the Giants' defense. The defense has not been good. They averaged 36.4 points against them per game.
I agree with you completely.
This year. That's awful.
I agree with you 100%. I think this is mostly the defense's fault. Like you said, averaging over 30 points, giving up a game. It's been an absolute train wreck, and I don't understand it with that defensive line.
They've got a good team. They've still got Tuck.
They've got a good defensive line, and not only that, but the offensive line. I noticed this in the Eagles game this week. It's just they're not giving Eli enough time in the pocket. The Eagles, of all teams, with one of the worst defenses in the league, with the Giants, were all over Eli at the very end. The ball getting tipped and the interception at the end.
It was
he just doesn't have time to throw. No, Eli's not playing the best of his career right now, obviously, but it's not in any way all on him. I still think Eli's a pretty solid quarterback. I've been saying that even as an Eagles fan. I think Eli is still underrated for having 2 rings. but it's just the offensive line and the defense. It's just the people around Eli are just not getting it done, other than Victor Cruz, really.
No, I definitely agree with both of you. I think the offensive line, though, is definitely to blame more than anybody else here. Manning's throwing a lot of interceptions, but you have to look at what happens before he lets go of the ball, and that's that he's only getting a couple seconds. There's really not even a pocket to say that he's throwing.
Real quick, the thing that actually surprises me, in the first round of the draft this year, they did pick up an offensive lineman from Syracuse, Justin Pugh, who's actually played decently well.
No, he has, but there's
Justin
only
Pugh's
so much
played
one
well.
player
The
can
rest
do.
of them, though, it's a mess.
Yeah,
it's an absolute mess.
The offensive line is really hurting Manning, and like you said, the defense isn't doing them any favors.
And that's the thing. That's what really sucks about it because, I mean, I'm an Eagles fan, but you said, I mean, you could sympathize with Eli. He is a good quarterback. He's not amazing. He did get his ring and everything, but, I mean, it's unfortunate to see that because he's the quarterback, he's the captain of the team, so he's going to get all that weight down on him.
Yeah, Eli's not the problem, but he's definitely part of it.
However, I will say this before we run to the next topic. Although they look like a mess right now, we know the Giants can be a second-half team.
Definitely.
And as of right now, the Eagles and Cowboys are tied for first at a 2-3 record. The Giants are only 2 games back. No doubt in my mind. At 0-5. Only 2 games out of this first place in the division. I have no doubt that the Giants can turn it around.
Oh, my
Will
God.
they do it this week against Chicago? I don't know. But I wouldn't count them out just yet. As bad as
I don't see it. I'm counting them out.
Are you?
Yeah. I don't see them turning it around.
Still a little bit nerve-wracking.
The way that they've played so far, I'm not counting them out.
I think they're dead in the water.
All right. I'm still a little worried about them, but we're going to move on here. We're going to stick in the NFL, and we're going to talk about the breaking news today that Julio Jones might have a season-ending injury for him, and the Falcons are already dropped to 1-4 after losing to the New York Jets on Monday Night Football.
It's a shame we laugh at that.
It's a shame we laugh. The Jets are 3-2 now, right? Is that right? 3-2 Jets.
That's the precedent of
weird.
it all, though. Like, nobody saw that coming.
No, not at all. But nobody saw the Falcons at 1-4, so therefore, Kyle, we start with you. Can the Falcons recover if Julio Jones is out for the season?
I think so. I think that because their struggles haven't been really in the passing game right now. So losing Julio Jones, it's not like he was what was keeping them intact. I think they need to find some semblance of a running game, maybe get that defense back up to where it is. Their linebackers have been struggling a lot. And then we'll start to see this team pick it up again. I don't think Julio Jones is what's kept them where they are. I think there's a lot of other factors, and they could start to turn it around.
For me, if Julio Jones is out for the year, the season's over for the Atlanta Falcons in my mind because it's just too many injuries at this point. Roddy White's banged up, and yes, he'll be healthy by the second half of the season. But if Julio's out for the year, you already have Steven Jackson banged up. So you have Jason Snelling and Rodgers as your running backs, which is just not going to get the job done. I love Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan's still extremely underrated. I think he's a fantastic quarterback. But the only real weapon he has at the moment is Tony Gonzalez, who's probably playing his last year as a tight end. He's getting up there in age. And not to mention the New Orleans Saints are just taking off this season. Drew Brees is having a heck of a start. So, no, I think if Julio's out for the season, the Falcons can say bye-bye.
And you know what? I'm going to have to echo that point, unfortunately, for Kyle. But I totally agree with that. Just looking at the stats and looking what Julio Jones has done thus far this season, he's more than quadrupled the stats of every other receiver that they have. He's easily the best option that Ryan has or had. You say Tony Gonzalez. Now, when your tight end is your best option on passing, that's a big problem.
It'll help in the red zone.
Is it though? I mean, Jimmy Graham in New Orleans. Is that a problem?
Jimmy Graham is a rarity.
Jimmy Graham's just one.
Tony Gonzalez is Tony Gonzalez.
But he's older now. Tony Gonzalez is way out of his prime.
He's a vegan now, man. He's doing stuff he's never done before.
He's lean.
I think Tony Gonzalez is still very productive, but at this point, if he's like your really only big weapon, you're not going to win a division with Drew Brees and the Saints.
And that's why I say they need to get the running game together because I think they can recover from this, but it's not going to be through the passing game. But they need to find something else to hang on.
Do you think Steven Jackson's going to come back and play as well as he has?
I think he can. Do I think he will is a different question, but I think it's a capability. I don't think they'll take the division, though. Let's not get that messed up. The Saints are running away
this division. It's whether or not they get the wild card spot. I don't think they will.
But yeah, to sum up my point, though, yes, it is going to be a season-ending deal for them. Julio Jones being gone, Roddy White hasn't done much for them, and if you only have Tony Gonzalez, as great as he was at one point, and maybe still is, it's not enough.
You can put some on the defense, though, too. The defense has not been as good as
they're
they're supposed to be.
linebackers are terrible.
Last year, the whole big thing was this Falcons defense being like a very, very solid defense. Asante Samuel signing there and all that.
Asante.
They've been
that's a big
we know
problem.
about
all
him.
their cornerbacks are just mini Asante Samuels.
Pretty much.
They have no
for the interceptions.
just
they can't
bulk
hit.
in that background.
Well, they're not about the team. They're about their own personal stats.
Yeah.
Speaking of big hits, let's go to Jadeveon Clowney and talk about him and his possible NFL future. A lot going on with him right now on and off the field, not living up to his expectations. Derek, we will start with you on this one. Is Clowney hurting his NFL image?
I'd say undoubtedly.
Yeah.
I'd say that it definitely does hurt your NFL image. I know that a lot of people in the NFL have done some very questionable things and gotten away with it in the past. I mean, look at somebody like Dez Bryant with his situations, and he's hailed as one of the better receivers, especially with fantasy crowd and everything like that. But he's been hailed as one of the better defensive ends to come out of college in the past decade. This guy has a lot built up for him. He was up for Heisman's and stuff like that. He's one of the people that they're really looking forward to. But to pull such amateur and immature stunts like that, I mean, to go up to your coach, to go up to anybody really when you have a commitment to them and go up to them and like right before you're about to do something huge, like a game, and just be like, yeah, I'm not feeling it. You can't do that.
No. That's what he said. Normally it's the trainer that would come up to him, but he did it himself, which really says something.
It's completely unprofessional on his part, but honestly, I think his NFL image has been hurt since before any of this off-the-field issues. I think the moment that ESPN hyped him up as the number 1 pick in the draft this year, as the Heisman favorite, for a defensive tackle, he's not going to win the Heisman Trophy, bottom line. I think he was built up, too much pressure, too much hype, and I think from that moment right there, he wasn't going to be the number 1 pick. He was going to drop down. He has not done much this season at South Carolina, and then all this off-the-field issues also just adds on to it. But I think he's been hurting it since, I mean, not even just himself, just the media hurt the image enough. Like, they hyped him up too much.
They built him up too big.
He's a very good player, but he's not the next great defensive tackle in the NFL. I really don't believe he is. I think he can be efficient. I think he'd be productive on a team. I'd certainly like him, but I don't think he's this big number 1 pick, Heisman hopeful.
Now, I'm not so worried about where he goes, whether it's Heisman or not, because everybody's been talking about the worst team is just the Clowney team. Like, it's already been decided that's who they're taking. But I don't think he's really hurting his NFL image when it comes to the off-the-field stuff. When you talk about a guy like Dez Bryant, Justin Blackmon, who came out 2 years ago, there are guys doing a lot worse in college that still come out and flourish, and they're first-round picks. So, I mean, maybe this stuff hurts the way teams look at him, but it's not going to affect the way he gets drafted.
I think it is more the on-the-field issues himself, the fact that he's just not living up to expectations. And again, it was built too high. But, I mean, this kind of reminds me of like a Jake Locker. Everyone thought Jake Locker was going to be easily the number 1 pick in the draft, and he fell. And he hasn't been bad with Tennessee. But
he hasn't been bad.
I mean, now
Fitzpatrick took over.
He's doing the same thing with Matt Barkley.
That's true. It's very true, actually. Now he's here in Philly, dropped to the 4th round. So I think Clowney's one of those guys. I don't think he'll drop to the 4th round.
No.
By no means. But, you know, I feel like his whole image was hurt just from the start. He wasn't as good as people made him out to be. All right, that's going to do us here in this first segment. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Peter Laviolette firing, and we're going to talk about some playoff baseball. So stay with us here on Face Off.